How's it going, everyone? I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season, a Merry Christmas, and everything else. I haven't made a video in a while, but I recently inspiration struck, I guess, and I wanted to update you guys on some things that I've been thinking about, so here we go. As you know, probably if you've seen the horror video that I put on this channel, the very first video on this channel, I'm really interested in what makes a good story. So I tried to kind of get to the bottom of that recently, and I just started reading Robert McKee's story, substance, structure, and style, The Principles of Screenwriting. This is a great book that I got on Amazon. It had amazing reviews, so I figured why not give it a shot. So right off the bat, McKee makes a few distinctions in his book about what a good story is about and about what the book is about. So a good story is about archetypes, not stereotypes. So what McKee said particularly at this part of the book is that a story takes a universal human experience and wraps it in a particular cultural expression. Here I'm reminded of Orson Welles' 1937 adaptation of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar that he put on to reflect the rise of right-wing governments in the time. And another great movie called The Fisher King, which is sort of an overlooked old Robin Williams film. I think it also has Jeff Bridges, a young Jeff Bridges, and it's a film that's based on an Arthurian legend. It's a wonderful, you know, sort of universal human story about fall and redemption and finding oneself, and it's set in like 1980s or 1990s New York. Tom Waits also makes a cameo in that movie. It's real fun, a lot of great characters. So these are two great examples, I think, of that first point that McKee makes in story. Both works, Orson Welles' 1937 Julius Caesar and The Fisher King, breathed new life into age-old stories with sort of time-tested moral lessons. So the second point that he makes is stories are about thoroughness, not shortcuts. Never say more than is absolutely necessary. And it's hard for like a screenwriter or a novel writer or a short story writer to cut the fat off of their novel. Maybe that means reducing dialogue or throwing away entire scenes. But really, you don't want the story to be crowded. You want it to have a clear arc. You want it to be aesthetically appealing as a whole, structurally. And I mean, there's also the point about an economy of words, right? Any writer has an economy of words, and they need to squeeze the most amount of meaning they can out of the fewest words possible. So that's, I guess, another cornerstone of storytelling. So now let's talk about character development. So, and I guess, I don't know if this is spoiler alert or not. I'm not really spoiling the movie. But I'll talk about The Last Jedi briefly. I did see it in theaters, and I was pretty disappointed. But while I was leaving the theater, I couldn't exactly figure out what I was disappointed with. I mean, it was sort of a lot of cut and paste, Return of the Jedi and The Empire Strikes Back, like a lot of stuff that I'd seen before. But something about it didn't seem as fresh and as vibrant. And I think the main criticism that I have with that movie that I can actually point at directly is my problem is with Daisy Ridley's character, Rey. All the way from The Force Awakens, the first movie that introduced us to her, she's immediately perfectly technically proficient at everything she tries to do. She can pilot the Falcon, she bypassed the whatever when they were boarding that ship. She immediately, defeated Kylo Ren, someone who had trained, and she had no training whatsoever. It was like there were no actual hurdles for her. She was just perfect in every way. And that would have been something that I could have overlooked had she ever developed. And by that I mean there was never a point where I thought that she might turn. There was never a point where I thought, ooh, maybe she's not going to do the good thing here. Maybe she's not going to do what's right. Like, if you saw The Empire Strikes Back for the first time in your life in theaters in 1980, when Luke was hanging in Bespin after the duel with Vader, when he was hanging onto that thing, like over that large expanse where he could have fallen to his death, he just found out that Vader was his father, and that's like a real strong connection you have with someone, and it's either death or you get to rule the galaxy with your father, who you never met before. I mean, that's an enormous temptation, and Daisy Ridley, not Daisy Ridley, Rey. I don't know why I keep thinking of the actress's name, but Rey sort of has a temptation moment in The Last Jedi, but it's with someone who she has no connection with. I mean, the Force is connecting them, but that's sort of a cop-out. Like, there's we still don't know what her connection to anything is. Like, what's her stake? Anyway, that's enough of that for Last Jedi ranting. Anyway, the point that I was getting to is that I started to think about, okay, so Rey is a pretty flat character. You know, she's uninteresting. She's moving upward all the time. She's perfect. She does everything right. When is it okay to write a character like that? That's what I started thinking about. When is it okay to write a static character? And the first thing that came to mind for me was comedy. In a comedy, it's kind of fun and funny to have a static character. Movies like Dumb and Dumber, the 1967 movie, The Producers, the characters at the beginning, they come up with this scam, right? They're gonna put on a play that's a guaranteed flop and oversell it, so they sell more than 100% of their play. So they've got a bunch of backers who put in a lot of money to support this play, and they're sure that it'll flop because it's a piece of crap, and they'll get to keep the money because it won't make any money, so they won't have to pay the backers back, which is a genius idea. Except that the play actually becomes a hit, and so they're in serious financial trouble. They go to jail for scamming these people, and then in jail, the very last scene in the movie is them trying to put on a play. These inmates are like buying part of the play. They're doing the same scam again. It's like the characters never learned a lesson, and that's what makes them lovably stupid, zany, characters. Another great example of this is Seinfeld. So if you guys have watched Seinfeld, and it's like a religion in my household, you know that there's never a moral lesson that they learn, right? They're always kind of scummy, kind of, they lie, they cheat, they get away, they try to do whatever they can get away with. And that's what makes it funny. Like, that's what, the characters are going to act that way no matter what situation they encounter. So another time when fixed static character, main character, is okay to have is in ancient legend. So ancient Greek, ancient Norse heroes, J.R.R. Tolkien said that these ancient heroes sort of encounter different pitfalls and challenges that reveal different parts of their nature, even though they don't change throughout the stories. And Tolkien himself tried to incorporate some of this in his storytelling. So he said that he made the hobbits more humanistic sort of anti-heroes who do undergo character development, while the more ancient sort of epic characters like Thorin Oakenshield and Aragorn maintain their nature more steadily throughout the story. So he had both in the story. I mean, he's like a storytelling genius, so he can get away with anything. But I think it's interesting that he was aware of the fact of that in his own storytelling when he was writing like The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. So the third and final time when it's okay to have a main static character is when they are an audience surrogate. A classic example would be Alice in Wonderland. So you've got basically, a little girl who falls down the rabbit hole, and she's on a quest through this psychedelic land where she encounters many different, she's sort of like the ancient hero, right? She encounters many different challenges, riddles, zany characters along the way, and Alice acts as sort of a first-person tour guide throughout the world. The director Stanley Kubrick, who is actually my favorite film director, has a lot of characters like this too. The movie Eyes Wide Shut, which was his last film with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, had characters like this. You're sort of taken with Tom Cruise, or as Tom Cruise, throughout the movie, encountering these different interesting scenarios. And the YouTuber Nerdwriter1, if you guys are familiar with his video essays on film, they're incredible. You should check them out. Has a video on this very subject, which I'll link in the description, because he does it justice way better than I ever could. But the goal of the audience surrogate is to just sort of make a tour guide, a character who will take you through a land, someone who you can follow but not empathize with, and that combination will plunge the audience or the viewer or the reader, whatever, deeper into the world that you've created. So I think that audience surrogates are especially potent and useful when you've got an especially interesting world, like you're good at world building. So thank you guys for joining me on this Anarcho Sagas installment. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll probably be making more videos on like themes in literature and film and storytelling in the future, because that's just what's been on my mind recently, what I've been thinking about and reading about. So I always, of course, welcome your feedback and comments and suggestions and everything like that. And on a final note, I wanted to remind everyone that we create stories not to escape the world, but to better understand it. Thank you. Happy New Year. Take care.